So you can click go live. Okay, there. So, good evening, Sally.
Hi, good evening. I am still here. Oh, I'm even not hidden tonight. Okay, I guess that's okay because we had a big event last night and everybody's already seen me.
Yes, so magandang gabi po, Pilipinas. We are broadcasting live. This is the Lunas Pilipinas Coalition, Attorney Tanya Lat and Super Sally.
Hello, everybody. I'm just trying to fix a problem with one of the X streams, so I'll let you talk for a few minutes, Tanya.
Okay. It seems are we okay? I think it's the World Council for Health thing.
Correct. I'll change it to Doc Maribix. I'm just finding her link.
All right. Okay,
Okay.
so for those of you who are joining us, so magandang gabi po, maayong gabi. Um, or maybe good morning if you are in America. Good afternoon kung kayo po ay nasa Europe or Middle East. And magandang gabi po for those who are joining us from Australia and Asia. So we are broadcasting on several platforms. Finally, we've gotten our Facebook, YouTube, and X platforms up and running. At kung kayo po ay nandito na po, magparamdam po tayo. Magandang gabi po. Dolorosa and Marilu. And please let us know if you're there. Nakaka-lonely po if we don't know if people are listening. So please say hi and we'll read out your comments po. So how are you feeling, Super Sally?
I am. We have had a really big week. So for all of our viewers, you probably haven't heard much from us recently, and I haven't been publishing on Substack because we had a very big event that we called at last minute for strategic reasons, and we were working very hard to have that happen. So Tanya, we're planning to share what we did last night with the rest of our viewers tonight,
Yes.
right?
Yes. So we have a very special broadcast for all of you tonight. So maybe some of you were able to join us last night. We broadcasted via the Lunas Filipinas Coalition YouTube page. It's refurbished. Bagong-bago po. You can see our logo very prominently displayed. And this is on my wall. Ito yung ating mga visuals po. And we had an international press conference where we called attention to the infant mortality in the Philippines. Namamatay po ang ating mga babies. Super Sally has been doing a lot of research over the past few years about excess deaths. And in recent months, she has been focusing po on the children. So we reported that last night along with findings po from our colleagues in Dumaguete about the findings under the microscope. So for those of you who have been watching, nakilala na po ninyo yung ating presenters po. But if you haven't, please do tune in tonight. We will be broadcasting the replay, the recording. We know that many of you had other commitments last night, Friday. And so we thought that we would use tonight's broadcast to bring you this very important replay. And we had a lot of people coming in from all over the world. Super Sally, we had like 250 people sign in sa Zoom.
Yes.
So 250 people from different parts of the world coming in. We had a very international crowd last night. And we also had many of you joining us on YouTube and on Facebook eventually.
Yes, and this morning or actually this afternoon when I checked our YouTube, we already are up to around 1,500 views by this afternoon when I last checked. So
Wow.
I'll check it again later. But we're seeing a steady increase in views.
Yes, yes. And we're now live streaming on multiple platforms, so YouTube, Facebook, and X. And also, many of our international viewers last night have started posting and reposting on their respective platforms. So I think Dr. David Nixon has shared us on his, is it Substack, Sally?
No, he has his own website.
His
He
own
has his,
website.
his own website. So he shared our presentation on his own website, and he's given us a very useful advice in our preparation for yet last night's event. So we're very grateful to the feedback we got from him.
Yes. And so we have our presentations on the situation in the Philippines. And we had Doc Romy, our favorite doctor na activist, si Doc Romy Quijano, also Doc Marivic Villa, um, also commenting. And we had also Dr. David Nixon from Australia and Dr. Joseph Sanson from Florida commenting. It's always such an honor when we have foreign doctors joining us, taking time. And we also had a very lively group in the chat, in the Zoom room. The chat box was very lively. People were chatting, people were commenting. And after we live streamed, we kept the Zoom room open and we were talking siguro for an additional, was it 30 minutes, Super
It was
Sally?
more than that. I think we finished around 11:30, and we finally shut the. We turned off the recording, of course, and we turned off the public viewing. But there were still
Yeah.
people in the Zoom room for maybe 40 minutes, including
Yeah.
international people who were just listening to us chat.
Yeah, and it's always very nice, para sa ating mga regular viewers, that we already feel like you are community. Febs, we're very happy that you're joining us from Reno. Junfe, thanks for watching us from Cagayan Valley. You know, you guys have become family in some way, and last night that family has been expanded to include people from all over the world. It was such a nice feeling, Sally.
Yes, it was. It was. It was. All the blood, sweat, and tears literally was worth it.
Yeah, yeah. And so the reason why we continue to broadcast is because of you, dear viewers.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
and salamat. Salamat for spending your Saturday nights with us. And if you're team replay, thank you for watching us in the morning.
Yes, yes. So please do share this tonight if you enjoy it. We really want the information that we shared last night to get to the biggest global audience that we possibly can, because we hope that this will be part of the trigger for change and for further investigation into what's been happening over the pandemic years, and also with regards to technological developments that we may or may not welcome.
Yeah, yeah. And so with that, let's go through our usual slides, and we also need to inform our viewers about the important things that are happening starting next week, which is why we had our press con last night. So let me bring the slides to the stage. Okay. Oops. Go back to the very beginning. All right. Okay. So welcome to our Lunas Pilipinas livecast. It is Saturday, May 17. Okay. Middle of the month. Maybe it's already started raining in your parts of the country. Medyo, it didn't rain here in where we are, no? Super Sally.
It has been raining on and off, but we haven't had any rain for the past 2 days. So it's
Not
just very hot and humid at the moment.
Yeah. And for those of you who have had the chance to go to the beach, we feel very envious.
Jealous.
Jealous.
Yes.
Super Sally, I think, is going to the beach in 2 weeks.
Yes, I am. I can't wait.
Good for you. All right. Okay. So we read our manifesto. So we are the Lunas Pilipinas Coalition. We are a coalition and community of concerned Filipinos and friends of the Philippines who have united around the issue of medical and personal freedom.
Okay. We believe in a divine creator who created us in his image and likeness.
We believe in free will and human rights, freedom of choice, and informed consent.
We believe in personal and national sovereignty, self sufficiency, and self reliance.
We believe that the Philippines has an important role to play in the liberation and great awakening of humanity.
Our mission is to facilitate healing from the division and trauma caused by COVID 19 and to find solutions to the various challenges that we face as a nation.
We believe that because we are all part of the problem, we are all part of the solution. Each one of us can make a difference. And so together,
Tayo,
um,
um,
Lunas.
Lunas. May Lunas, Filipinas.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Sally.
You're
Okay.
welcome.
So we are broadcasting live on the following social media platforms. So we continue to be thankful to Juan Dakila and Attorney Aaron Sogilon for allowing us, continuing to host us on the Juan Dakila Facebook page. There will be some changes over the next few weeks, but we will save that for a more opportune time. Okay. There have been a lot of transitions. Marami pong pagbabago sa mga freedom movement, both worldwide and here in the Philippines. Okay, but we trust that it's all for the best. Okay, we will wait for an opportune time to make the joint announcements po. Okay, but I think it's going to be very exciting because it means that we are expanding into new directions. Ayun. We are also broadcasting on Super Sally's X account.
Thanks. Yeah,
Okay.
Council for 9904 is not yet broadcasting.
Ah,
We have to ask Marivic to bring that one in. She has to authorize it.
all right. I was gonna ask Super Sally, how many people are subscribed to your Twitter account?
I think around 2,000. I'd have to check. I haven't checked recently, but I keep getting more. And my Substack is nearly 3,000 people.
Wow, good
Yeah,
for you.
I'm
Yeah.
working on it.
All right. We're expanding our viewership and our listenership. And happy to report that our Lunas Pilipinas Facebook page is refurbished. You'll see our collaterals there, our logo. We encourage you to engage the site. We promise that there will be more material posted. We've added Super Sally and some other people as admins. There's going to be more content moving forward. So please do check out our Facebook page. Our YouTube channel will also be more active. Our Rumble, unfortunately, is not broadcasting, but I think what 6 platforms isn't bad for today.
Yes, not bad. We have enough platforms that people can watch us.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So the important thing that everyone needs to know. Okay. But I think let's talk about elections first, no, Super Sally. I think
Yes,
we should
yes.
talk about elections.
So, well, I think the elections were generally peaceful, although there were many reports of vote buying and other miscellaneous misbehaviors. But
Mhm.
overall, I think they were generally peaceful.
Yeah.
Um, there were a few incidences in a few remote places, I think, but overall, nothing major. So we're all very grateful for that. Um, and now we have a 1 month period before the new Congress comes in. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right. So actually, there will be one final session of Congress from June 2 to June 13. And well, some of our advocates were not re-elected or were not elected to the positions they ran for. So unfortunately, Kong Dan Fernandez didn't win as governor of Laguna. Congressman Benny Abante, unfortunately, didn't get re-elected to his congressional seat. But be that as it may, the candidates who didn't win still have to finish their term. And so Congress is still going to meet again in June. And we have actually been advised by former, leaders in Congress that we should, kumbaga dapat magbantay po tayo. We have to still be vigilant because from their experience, it is usually in the last few days or weeks of Congress that they try to railroad certain bills. So for those of you who are inclined to look into the pending bills, I think we have the Virology Institute.
The Virology Institute, they've just passed I read they passed a bill about children. I haven't seen what that one involves.
Hmm.
It's welfare of something to do with welfare of children. So
Mm-mm.
It's I think it's quite important for Filipinos to go and check the congressional page and see what is happening.
Yes.
It's good to be aware citizens.
Yeah, we should. And we have to also remember um, SB 1869. It hasn't moved since 2023, which is a good thing. But we must not be complacent because we never know if it could be resurrected. Okay, so we encourage all our freedom fighters and fellow patriots. Let's continue to be vigilant, and perhaps you would be uh, bold enough to reach out to Kong Benny Abante and Kong Dan Fernandez. Let's ask them to continue the excess deaths hearings. Many of you have been asking whether what's happened to the hearings. Hindi pa tapos actually. They haven't concluded it, and perhaps we can all collectively lobby with them and tell them, Kong Dan, Kong Benny, you may not have been re-elected or you may not have gotten, what you wanted, the new positions you wanted, but please, since you lost anyway, why don't you leave with a bang? Di ba? Mag-iwan po kayo ng legacy. Go out with guns blazing, as they say. Di ba? There's still an opportunity, and after tonight's broadcast, you will see why it's important for us to push for this, because we want our presenters to be able to testify in Congress and put this on record. So they have bravely gone public to make a global call to action. We also have to make that call to action here in Congress. So yun. So what else about the election, Super Sally? Are we missing anything?
Um, no, I think just recommend that everybody please get involved with your new elected representatives, and remember that they're there to serve the Filipino people and the interests of the country. So, in every country, the leaders are only as good as we hold them to account.
Yes, that's right. And if you have citizens who are vigilant, chances are you will have elected officials who are conscientious and who do the right thing, because the citizens are ready to call them out if they're not doing their jobs. Yun. So there's that. Well, some important things to note, I guess. The results of the survey, I think people were very surprised that Bam Aquino, Kiko Pangilinan, and Marcoleta did well, because the survey said that they were, at the tail end. And some people, they were saying that would enter, like, I was surprised Manny Pacquiao was not even, was it 20 or something? You know, so some lessons, I guess. Like the surveys can't be trusted. Maybe
Hmm.
the surveys are like mental conditioning or programming, you know, in the same way that people have been conditioned to believe that the vaccines are safe and effective, so maybe it's the same psyops. I mean, what are your thoughts
Oh,
regarding that, Sally?
well, my experience is that Filipinos, when asked questions, will usually tell the person asking the question what they think they want them to hear. But
Ah,
then when it comes to actually doing something, they will
yeah.
do what they want and what they believe. And, I hope that this would be an indication that Filipinos are becoming more mature about their political activities. Because what I understand, I mean, I'm just an observer, Tanya, I'm not involved. Um,
Yeah.
but what I have read I haven't had much time to research, was that a lot of the populist or celebrity politicians didn't get back in. Congressmen didn't get back in. So there was a general move away from that.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I think there were also some political dynasties that were defeated. In certain areas, people said no. We want new blood. We want new people in. Unfortunately, the same cannot be said down south.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no comment.
one particular family is now more deeply entrenched, from the
Yeah.
grandfather down to the grandsons.
Mhm.
And
Anyway, I guess we watch and wait. And we pray for the leaders of this country. We pray for the wisdom and strength and courage of Filipino people to stand up for what they will believe is right.
yes,
We're living in very challenging times. And there's no doubt that our congressmen and politicians, we need to pray for their discernment and their wisdom as well.
Indeed, indeed. And so let me bring back the slides, because one thing that we also need to be vigilant about, happening starting next week, the World Health Organization. So the health secretaries and health officials from different parts of the world will be converging in Geneva at the WHO headquarters for the 78th World Health Assembly. So this is practically the next 2 weeks. They will be discussing important matters. We have to realize that we play a very important role as a country, because the Philippines has been nominated as president-elect for this World Health Assembly. And it's very important because this is the particular assembly where they intend to adopt the WHO pandemic agreement, and the IHR amendments, which were passed under very questionable circumstances 2 years ago, will take effect. And so hopefully you've been following the work of James Roguski. The WHO pandemic agreement text was not finalized until only last Thursday. So barely 48 hours ago did they release the draft agreement, and they plan to vote on it on Tuesday. If you guys take a look at the schedule, they meet on Monday. They formally turn over the presidency to the Philippines. And there's controversy also surrounding that. As we mentioned in a previous broadcast, there are health organizations from all over the world questioning the conflict of interest of the Philippines, because the Philippine government has received donations from Philip Morris. And Philip Morris, as we know, is a tobacco company. There are agreements regulating the use of tobacco and tobacco products. And so people have already questioned the integrity of the Philippine health authorities, because they've benefited, they've received donations from Philip Morris. Okay. And also, and this is why we had the press conference last night. We also want to call the attention of the Philippine authorities to the fact that our children are dying. Our children are dying. The DOH does not seem to be interested to find out why our children are dying. And we have very disturbing findings that should be investigated further. And so we will be sending out official letters to our health officials. And we'd also like to get everyone's support. I understand, I think there's a petition that's circulating, Super Sally. Pastor Jojo Tejano, I think, has it reached you? They have an online petition, I think, to reject the pandemic agreement.
Okay, I think I did see something about that.
Yeah,
It's on Facebook.
yeah,
I've been too busy to take a good look at that, but perhaps some of our viewers can look for that and then share it if you
yes,
agree with it.
yeah. So we must start talking about this, and we must also push back. So James Roguski is calling for the rejection of the pandemic agreement. Every country in the world should push back and say we reject this agreement. Isipin ninyo, it's like you were given a very, very long document that could change, the rest of your life. It could change your family's life. And you're being asked to sign it immediately without reading, without consulting with your family. It's basically, oh, we need to sign it by Tuesday. And you were only given a copy on Thursday, you know. And
And then there's no, yeah,
even if you're
sorry.
the smartest person on the planet, I mean, di ba Sally, you will need time to read.
Yeah, and to digest and to understand and to discuss with other people. So this is an agreement that's been done by some people up there, and they're going to impose it on the people who are attending the World Health Assembly, who are expected to make a final decision and sign it or accept it on behalf of their countries without ever discussing it with the people in their country. And this is not just relevant for the Philippines, it's relevant for every single country.
Yes. And under Philippine law, agreements are supposed to go through the Senate. Okay. But just because it's going to go through the Senate does not mean that we can relax. In the past, and I have personal experience with the Super Sally. Back in 2007 and 2008, we were questioning the terms of the Japan Philippines Economic Partnership Agreement. And it was an agreement that the main environmental issue there was that it seemed that there was a plan on the part of Japan to export their waste to the Philippines.
I remember
And
that.
yeah, and the government was denying, they were saying, oh, you're making this up, it's not there. But, you know, I was part of the team that studied that agreement, and it was really very clear. Why do you include these provisions about exporting waste if you don't plan to export waste in the first place? You know, and so we really fought hard. We tried to intervene while the agreement was being negotiated, and this was during the Arroyo administration. They were very secretive. It seemed like they already had these deals with the Japanese. They didn't want to release the text to people. We were pushing for freedom of information. Basically, the government, the Supreme Court told us, no, you don't have the right to information, which was a big blow to us. And so they finalized the agreement. We then went to the Senate to fight back. We were saying that you may have signed it, but this is illegal, this is unconstitutional. We filed the case with the Supreme Court. Super Sally, do you want to guess when that decision came out?
During the pandemic.
Yeah. So we filed that case in 2007. I was in Georgetown when we filed that. I'd already come back to the Philippines. It's already been more than 10 years, and it only came out during the pandemic.
Wow.
It's like, wow.
Oh,
Yeah. So
yeah.
it's like justice delayed is really justice denied. You
So did
know,
they implement that and start shipping waste to the Philippines?
Well, the good thing is, okay, and this is why it's so important for us to fight for our rights, to speak up as citizens. Because of all our protests, we were protesting in the Senate, we were really lobbying hard against the government, the media was covering our events. Um, they couldn't ignore us. And so, Miriam Defensor Santiago, she was still alive at the time. She was trying to defend the agreement, but people were very vocal. The nurses were very vocal. The trade unions were very vocal. The environmentalists, especially, were very vocal. The lawyers were very vocal. So they couldn't ignore us. And what happened was Japan, because Japan's very sensitive to its reputation as a country, as a people. Saving face, shame. The whole concept of shame is a very sensitive issue for the Japanese. And they didn't want to look like bad business partners or bad country partners. The Japanese issued a diplomatic note. Basically, it was like a side agreement. They didn't want to touch the treaty. They said, we finished all of these negotiations. We're not going to amend anything. However, here's a side note. We promise not to send our waste to you. That's what they did. And actually, at the time, we were saying, that's not binding enough. That's not binding. That's just a side agreement. That's just a letter. They can ignore that. But the Japanese have been true to their word. They have not sent waste to us. And it just so happens that the Japanese have a word of honor. But yes, effectively, that diplomatic note was like a side agreement that effectively amended the original agreement. So even though there were provisions there that said that, in theory, Japan can send waste to the Philippines, they themselves said, we are issuing this new note that amends our original contract. We will not ship waste to you. And
Well,
yeah, go ahead, Sally.
that really shows the power of the people. So that's
Yeah,
a very empowering um, account to share with everybody here.
that was quite a campaign. Actually, it was really a multi-sectoral campaign, and yeah, I was at the forefront of that. And I can't help but feel, Sally, that this is going to be a repeat of JPEPA, but this time it's
Yeah,
about health.
yeah.
Yeah, and
Okay, that's good. So you're experienced.
I guess so. If I can share, this is Andy's assessment. So you remember Fukushima, the
Yes.
nuclear meltdown of their nuclear power plant. And so there was a lot of waste that got discharged because of that meltdown. Andy is of the theory that if we were not successful with JEPEPA, Japan could have sent the Fukushima waste to the Philippines.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, we don't know, and it's a good thing we never had to find out.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Because we have received waste from other countries before. And we really have to stand up for our dignity as a country. We don't want to be the garbage basket, the waste basket of Asia or Japan or all these developed countries.
Well, it's even worse than that because the Philippines doesn't have adequate waste disposal facilities. So, for developed countries to send their waste here without first investing in first world standard waste management facilities is really off. Is really it's the wrong thing to do, and it's taking advantage. So we're not going to destroy our environment, but we don't mind destroying yours.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like one of those things not in my backyard, but they're gonna
Yeah.
throw it into someone else's backyard.
So we'll just give you a few 100 million or whatever and grease the right palms, and then we'll do our waste so we can forget about it, and you have to deal with it for generations.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
we have enough trouble managing our own waste in the Philippines.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then
Anyway,
I think there are countries in Africa which are actually where I think Europe throws its trash in Africa. I remember reading reports of that. It's colonization all over again.
but in the worst possible way. And all of the unwanted clothes are sent to Africa, and they have mountains, literally mountains of clothes, just
Wow.
rotting. Yeah, I've seen reports on that. So yeah, all of the society now is such a throwaway society. And as an aside for all of us, if we look at sustainability, we in the proper sense, not in the woke agenda sense, but for sustainability, we need to live within what we need without acquiring so many things, and then don't just throw them away frivolously. Use them until they can't be used anymore. So
Yeah.
this is really a call to mindful frugality.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, we don't need that many clothes. We don't need that many cars. We don't need that many bags or shoes or, you
You
know.
don't need 15 sets of pots. You just need two or three good cooking pots. So
Yeah.
yeah, go
Yeah.
for quality rather than quantity, and go for things that will last for a long time.
Yeah.
And I think that's the most effective way to minimize our consumption and to minimize our footprint. And again, I say this in the woke, not in the woke context, but in the practical living in a sustainable way sense.
Yeah. Yeah. So we need to change.
Yes, we do.
We need to change. So, well, going back to the pandemic agreement question, so Jose Feliciano is asking, may pag-asa pa bang hindi maipasa yung pandemic treaty ng WHO? So basically, what are the chances of it getting passed or not passed?
I think the WHO intends to pass it somehow by hook or by crook, whether there's agreement or not. And even if it's not passed, they're going to say that it is and try and convince everybody that they should go along with it regardless. So I think they're going to try and railroad it, and I think that the population need to say no.
Yeah. Yeah. So we really have to speak out. So we have to communicate our disapproval to the Philippine government. So we will be posting on the Lunas Pilipinas Facebook page information that you can use. We have a permanent mission in Geneva. Okay, so think of this. No, in other countries we have Philippine embassies. They are the representatives of the Philippines to those particular countries. We have a Philippine mission, a permanent mission to the United Nations and other international organizations in Geneva. So the ambassador there is Ambassador Carlos Soreta, King Soreta as he is known in among UP law circles. We plan to send him an official letter expressing our concern about the adoption of the pandemic agreement as well as the enforcement of the IHR amendments. Okay, let's also please um, express our disapproval on the DOH website and all the DOH platforms. Can we please flood the DOH platforms? If you're subscribed to Ted Herbosa's X account, he's on X, right, Super Sally? Yeah, please flood his account. Please say no to the pandemic agreement, no to the IHR amendments. Um, and basically, we have to really communicate to all levels of the DOH and the Department of Foreign Affairs that we disapprove of these moves to railroad these agreements, which are against our collective interest as a people and as humanity.
Yes, and for all of you who are our viewers who are overseas, please lobby your own governments, your own representatives in the countries that you live in. If you're Filipino citizens, you could lobby from afar. Please do what you can. I mean, I can't lobby in the Philippines, that's not my role, but I can share information for Australia.
Yes.
And I
Yeah.
can share things on the global stage. So this is not a local Philippine issue. This is a global issue. But we all have to act locally in order to impact globally.
Yes. So let's not lose sight of the fact that we are Filipinos. And as Filipinos, Ted Herbosa, our elected officials, our ambassadors have to report to us. Okay, so let us directly engage them. There is social media, there's email. Let us use our power to express our disapproval of the pandemic agreement and the IHR amendments. All right. Okay. And this is our last slide, I guess, before going into the recording. So please save the date. As you know, June 12 is Independence Day, Araw ng Kalayaan. And we are planning an event for the Lunas Pilipinas community. So if you can come to Manila on that day, we would love to see you here. Um, we will not announce details yet, but suffice it to say, we plan to come together. Okay. We plan to have like a community gathering. We plan to do a potluck, and if you can come, we would love to see you here. For those who are unable to come to Manila, we would encourage you to have your own events in your respective provinces. No? So we have people from Isabela, Cagayan Valley. Maybe you can all see each other. Diba? For our friends in Visayas, Mindanao, different parts of Luzon, I think it's time for us to all come together. Magkita-kita po tayo and let's celebrate our freedom. Okay. We're going to be sharing closer to June 12, some of the activities that we plan to do here in Manila. And perhaps you can also do similar events in your respective provinces. And it doesn't have to be big groups. It can just be, small gatherings of people who share this desire for medical freedom and for, sovereignty. The important thing is we all come together because we believe in the same cause. And for all of us to know that we're not alone and that there are many of us. And we also want to share the merch. Hopefully, we'll be able to launch the merch by June 12.
So what do we have, Tanya? Do we have T-shirts?
We're planning to come up with T-shirts, also button pins, maybe stickers. What else? Caps? Do you think people would like to get caps?
Caps, some people like, some people don't.
Okay.
Yeah, I think but they're the common things. Are mugs with the logo on the mug. Yeah,
Okay.
the recycle bag with the logo on the bag.
Okay. Yeah, the bags, eco bags.
Yeah, eco bags.
Okay. Okay.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, we need to move on those if we want to have them ready.
Yeah. Yeah, but I was very happy. I had this printed very near where we live, Super Sally. They
Yes.
did it in like a couple of hours.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you. And shout out to Felix Javier. He's the artist who did this work. So thank you, Felix, for your excellent art.
Yeah, it's going to look awesome on a T-shirt. I'm buying the first T-shirt, Daniel.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Super Sally. Oh, yeah. Michiko suggests caps and bags.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So I'll keep posted, but please save the date. We would love for you to come to Manila, or to organize similar, ripple events, echo events in um, different parts of the country. All right. Okay. So yeah, I think we're done with our slides.
Okay.
Okay. All right. And so perhaps you would like to introduce our recording.
Yeah. Okay. So the
All
recording
right.
that we're going to show
Okay.
you. So Tanya was our moderator last night. The event went for about 2.5 hours. We started very slightly late because we had some technical issue. And this is presenting the findings that I have on infant mortality and also finding from our doctor colleague in Central Philippines.
Yeah. And so so they will present first, and then we will have reactions and a call to action at the end.
Okay, so we hope everybody enjoys this. We're sharing this as part of this, but if you want this as a standalone, you can get this from our Facebook page or from YouTube. The original is still on YouTube.
All right. So we hope you enjoy, everyone, and please spread the word. And for those of you, just a caveat. One of the comments always is that can we speak more in Tagalog? We had to present this for an international audience, so it's in English. But we hope that those among you who are in a position to explain this to your communities in Tagalog or in your regional languages, this would be a super big help. Kung may mga kilala po kayong influencers, we haven't been in touch with Lynn Agno, but if Lynn Agno can translate po for the rest of the country, malaking tulong po. So if you could relay that to her. Ayun. Okay, sige po. So we will start. Super Sally and I will be quiet now. And yeah, we'll play our recording. So let's formally begin. So good evening, magandang gabi, Pilipinas. Good morning to our friends who are in the Americas. Good afternoon to our friends who are in Europe and Africa, the Middle East. And good evening to our friends in Asia, Australia, and New Zealand. So I am Tanya Lat. I am the lead convener of the Lunas Pilipinas Coalition. We are a national coalition of concerned doctors, lawyers, scientists, teachers, business owners, civil servants, employees, and citizens from all walks of life, from all over the Philippines and all over the world because we are in the diaspora. And we have been advocating for the right to life, bodily integrity, health freedom, and national sovereignty, most especially since the COVID-19 pandemic. We came together because of the pandemic, united by the common quest for solutions, answers, and truth. And in its aftermath, we have been working actively to help the Filipino people, and by extension, the rest of humanity, to heal from the trauma of the pandemic and to prepare for any global crisis. So I am Tanya Lat, your moderator and host for this evening. To set the context for this evening's press conference, we wish to point out that over these past few weeks, our colleagues who are doctors and data analysts have discovered disturbing findings relating to infant mortality in the Philippines. This discovery has massive global implications for children, not only here in the Philippines, but all over the world. We wish to alert the international community regarding this, and we are grateful that all of you have come tonight from all over the world to hear this important message that we wish to broadcast to all of humanity. We set this in the context of the upcoming 78th World Health Assembly happening in Geneva, Switzerland, starting next Monday. The Philippines has been nominated for the presidency, and we will therefore, as a country, play a pivotal role in this important World Health Assembly. As concerned Filipinos, we feel that we have a moral obligation to the rest of the world to be responsible global citizens and to point out important issues that will have a bearing on these health negotiations that will be happening for the next 2 weeks. We wish to point out that the World Health Assembly will be tackling important issues. There is anticipation and it has actually been scheduled that the pandemic agreement, which we understand is still being drafted and not quite finalized, is already scheduled for approval on Tuesday next week. The international health regulations, which were also passed under very suspicious and questionable, legally questionable circumstances, will also start to take effect after the World Health Assembly. There are also initiatives. This year's World Health Assembly's theme is One World for Health. And there will be discussions regarding pandemics, regarding health preparedness, regarding the rollout of medical interventions, including vaccines, in the event of upcoming pandemics, which have been predicted by people like Bill Gates, the World Economic Forum, etc. And so it is in this context that we present this press conference tonight, and we present our findings on infant mortality in the Philippines. And so please allow me to introduce our presenters for this evening. And so the context is that the Philippines is facing a critical public health crisis with alarming increases in infant mortality and troubling patterns of infant cause of death over the pandemic years. There are also troubling findings arising from an investigation into some of the vaccines used in the country. And so our researchers and data analysts have done investigations by analyzing vital statistics issued by the Philippine Statistics Authority, as well as dark field microscopy and electromagnetic field monitoring. We have also invited a panel of reactors from different specializations from different parts of the world to comment on our findings. And so tonight, we won't make conclusions necessarily, but we want to present observations and raise important questions. We also want to raise this in a spirit of openness and of curiosity and inquiry. We want to raise this before the global community, not to point fingers, not to pass blame, but with the spirit of asking questions in the hope that we can get definitive answers and figure out what is the best way forward for humanity. We do this with an awareness that there are major advances in nanotechnology, major advances in terms of the use of artificial intelligence, and there are many conversations that need to be had between the fields of ethics, biology, artificial intelligence, technology, etc. And so it's in this spirit that we now formally open this press conference. And so our first speaker for this evening is Ms. Clark. So if we can spotlight Ms. Clark, we will give her a chance to share her screen. Allow me to read the brief profiles of our presenters this evening so that they can go straight into their presentations, after which they will be commented on by our reactors. Okay, and so if we can ask our tech support to take the slide down so that Ms. Clark can prepare her slides. So Ms. Clark has medical science and allied health degrees and works as an engineering manager. She has been researching population health outcomes in the Philippines and across Southeast Asia over the pandemic years. She writes about her findings as an independent researcher and as a citizen journalist. She has been alarmed by the population outcomes that are implied by official vital statistics data and wants to make this information available to government, media, and interested parties. We also wish to call to the stage briefly, for purposes of introduction, our medical analysts. And so Dr. Villanueva is a licensed physician and live blood analyst with a degree in medical technology. She conducted this study in her personal capacity without remuneration, and her findings are intended for replication by independent investigators. She assumes no responsibility for third-party interpretations. Okay, so we'll just highlight Dr. Villanueva. And last but not the least, we also call to the stage Ms. Reyes. Ms. Reyes is an environmental specialist with a master's degree in environmental management from a leading US university. She specializes in environmental monitoring. And so with that, I turn over the podium, the virtual podium, to Ms. Clark for her presentation.
Okay, am I clear? Is everyone able to hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So I'm very happy to be here tonight. I'm going to present data about Philippines population trending over the pandemic years, and I will focus on pediatric and infant deaths. All of my data is official government data. This is public domain, and specifically it's from vital statistics reports. And I have also the latest update for 2024, which is as of February 2025. So I know many of our audience will be very interested in what happened in the Philippines over the pandemic. So our pandemic timeline, 8th of March, we had a state of public health emergency declared. Just 1 week later, we had a 6-month state of calamity and lockdowns were imposed. So under these lockdowns, we had strict stay-at-home orders. Only essential workers were allowed out. There was no school and there was no public activities. The state of calamity was extended in the Philippines 3 times, and it finally expired in the end of December 2022. And finally, in the middle of 2023, our state of public health emergency was lifted after 40 months, and all of the pandemic restrictions and requirements were supposed to have lapsed and no longer be in place. So this is the state that happened in the Philippines. We had a very military condition in the Philippines. It was managed as a military situation. So people will be interested in our COVID vaccination timeline. 1st of March 2021, we had vaccine rollout to specific populations of elderly, vulnerable, and healthcare workers. And this was then followed by rollout to the general population. Pregnant women were prioritized and they started vaccination by 12th of August. Rollout to children aged 12 to 17 started by 15th of October, and booster dosing started in November. Young children aged 5 to 11 started vaccination in February 2022, and they had a third booster of Pfizer bivalent rolled out in June 2023. There was not much uptake of booster dosing in the Philippines. And by the end of 2023, the vaccines on hand expired and vaccination ended. So for information, in the Philippines, infants were never vaccinated. Children younger than 4 were never part of the vaccination program. And we haven't had any official vaccination for COVID vaccines in the Philippines since the end of 2023. So we're more or less a year and a half post-vaccination for our population. So just to let you know the vaccines that were used here, the most popular vaccine was Pfizer with 77 million doses. Second most popular was CoronaVac. And then we had 6 other vaccine types that were available. The government promoted that the most suitable vaccine was whatever was available. So people received all sorts of mixtures of vaccines. They would have, 3 different vaccines because that's what they had. So we had 72% of the total population was vaccinated, which is equivalent to about 78 million people. Only about 22% of the population have taken 1 or more boosters, which is about 28 million people. And about 10.2% of the population was too young for vaccination. So that's about just over 10%. And unvaccinated adults account for around 18% of the population. So in terms of the uptake, the young children didn't have very good uptake. 5 to 11-year-old, they only reached around 50% of their target. But age from 12 to 59, so older adolescents and working age adults achieved higher than target with a large uptake of vaccines. This is because it was mandated for work. It was mandated for public transport. It was quite difficult to live if you weren't vaccinated. And the senior citizens were not very enthusiastic. So that's the state of COVID vaccination in the Philippines. Just bear in mind that nearly all children born after mid-2021 would have been born to vaccinated women. Okay, so why am I looking at vital statistics? I got very interested in cold hard data because it is concrete and unbiased data. You're either born or not born, or you're dead or not dead. So these data typically change only slowly over time in healthy populations. They're an excellent reflection of overall health, well-being, and confidence of the population, and any sudden changes will act to raise an alarm. So the sort of things that may change our vital statistics could be natural disasters, mass flooding, a tsunami, war, severe disease outbreaks or famine, or worsening economic or public health confidence situations. In the Philippines, we did have quite dramatic changes, which I'll show you in the coming slides. First, this is my the source of my information. All of these are publicly available, and I've listed the source. You can download the Excel files, and you can manipulate the data yourself if you're interested. In case these files were unavailable, I have copies of all data and would be willing to provide copies to anybody upon request if they would like to do independent research. So first, let's look at the general population situation. So the death situation in the Philippines from 2000 to 2023, we see slowly increasing deaths, which is exactly what we expect with a growing and aging population. 2020, which is in yellow, is our first pandemic year. And in that year, we had lower than typical deaths. We had a drop of 1% in mortality. So people will say, was there under registration? I believe that there was not under registration of deaths in 2020. Number one is because in order to get buried in the Philippines or cremated, you have to present a death certificate. So unless you're buried in the backyard, you have a death certificate. 2021, we suddenly had a very large spike in deaths of more than 43%. I do believe that the 2021 data is underreported because we know that the government stopped doing compilation of late registrations earlier than usual. 2022, our deaths went down. And they rose again in 2023. But our post-pandemic deaths are higher than our prior levels. So we see increased death rates in our population. These are our annual registered births in the Philippines from 2000 to 2023. What we see is 2012 was our peak birth year in the Philippines. That was the most babies ever born at 1.79 million. Since 2012, we have had gradually decreasing births. 2019 was our last normal year. 2020, we had nearly a 9% drop in births. I do believe that this is at least in part under registration because people don't need to register their child until the child goes to school. So under lockdown conditions where people couldn't move around, it is quite logical to believe that perhaps they couldn't register their child. However, the data in 2021 was much worse with another 10% loss of births. Some recovery in 2022, but loss again in 2023. So what I will point out is we've had a loss of 20% of population growth between 2012 and 2023. Of that, we've had 13.5% loss between 2019 and 2023. So we are having quite rapid decreases in population because of our lowering births and rising deaths. So I wanted to contrast births and deaths. The blue line above is births, and we see over time the births would from 2019 to 2023 declining. 2024, the dotted line, this data is not yet complete, but we would expect it to be more or less complete for the first half of the year. And what's alarming is it looks like the births in 2024 are trending towards an unprecedented loss of births. So perhaps up to 20% loss of births additional in 2024 compared to 2023. And if that holds true in the final data, we would have lost 1/3 of our babies between 2019 and 2024. So please stand by for that data as more becomes available. I'd also like to point out the mortality data. I've marked the lockdown, which happened on the March 2020. I've marked vaccination that happened on March 2021. Immediately following rollout of the vaccines, we had a spike in deaths. And then in July and August of 2021, we have what I refer to as hyper excess mortality. And I believe that this correlated with the rollout of specific batches of COVID-19 vaccines, and specifically Janssen, which had a very high mortality rate. I have written about that on Substack, and I can share that later if people are interested. So moving on to pediatric deaths. I only have data from 2015. So what we can see is that infant pediatric mortality was relatively steady between 2015 and 2019. 2020, the first year of the pandemic, we suddenly had a big drop in pediatric deaths. This is equivalent to 10,000 fewer children than normal died. So normally we have nearly 50,000 children dying, and now we have only nearly 40,000. So we can imagine the cost to society of so many children dying. 2021 and onwards, we see rising pediatric mortality again. But these are raw data, and you also need to remember that our population has been decreasing since 2012, and we need to look at death rates rather than simple numbers. So now I'll move to infant deaths. When I look at infant deaths, my source data comes from the Philippine Statistics Authority annual reports of deaths and births and annual reports on causes of death. I calculated death rates per 1,000 or per 1 million live births to give an equal comparison of death rates over time, so adjusted for birth rates. So under normal circumstances, using the adjusted death rates, if everything stayed steady, we would expect death rates between years to be very consistent. We should not see any difference. If death rates improved, it means that the health condition of infants has improved. If death rates got worse, it means something has affected their health negatively. I also had annual cause of death data available for 2018 and 2020 to 2023. I could only use the data that's publicly available, and this level of data is only available since 2020. I was also able to break down the cause of death over time in the first year of life, and that data is from 2020 to 2023. So the cause of death data was broken down by day for the first 7 days of life, by week for the next 3 weeks, and I calculated average daily deaths per million births, and then by month for the next 11 months, and I also calculated average daily deaths per million doses. Okay, so when I look at Philippine infant deaths, again, these are raw data from 2000 up to 2023, we can see that infant mortality was generally decreasing since 2000. It more or less stabilized in the 2010 to 2016, and then it has risen slightly, 2017 to 2019. The first year of the pandemic, we had 5,000 fewer babies died under lockdown conditions when our infants could not access regular medical care. Then we see a big rise in infant mortality up to 2023. So this is also raw data just to contrast births and deaths, and I've given some indication of the numbers. We've dropped from 1.8 million births in 2012 to 1.67 2020 and 1.45 million in 2023. I believe our 2024 data will be somewhere in the range of 1.1 to 1.2 million in final data. For the deaths, we could see a peak deaths in 2019 with 21,000 and more or less similar in 2023. But as said, our birth rate has gone down, so we calculate death rates. So this is our crude death rate, meaning our deaths per 1,000 live births. 2000 was our highest infant mortality, and that improved over time to the mid 2015, 2016. Death started fluctuating after that time. 2020, first year of the pandemic, our death rate went down by 15%. This is our lowest ever death rate for infants. And if we consider under registration of infant births, this would be even lower. if we had full data. However, 2021, we have a big spike in infant mortality. Up to 2023, we have the worst infant mortality we've seen since 2001, meaning we've lost 20 years of progress in health and wellness of our infants. So my questions: why did infant deaths drop so much during 2020, the first year of the pandemic, with no access to regular medical care? Why did deaths rise so sharply in 2021 under identical lockdown conditions? The only thing that changed in 2021 effectively was rollout of vaccines. There could have been complications from extended lockdown, but the only major change was rollout of COVID vaccines. And then why does our infant mortality continuously rise from 2020 to 2023? We see a very much worse health outcome of our infants. So this is Filipino infant average daily deaths per million births. This is set out by the time periods I already mentioned and showing data from 2020 to 23. This is exactly what we would expect to see. So in terms of the overall pattern, what we expect to see is infants who are sick at birth die quickly. So the majority of infants who are born with conditions not compatible with life die under 1 day or soon thereafter. And then the deaths of infants drop off. What is not usual is that we see a big rise in deaths between 2000 and 2023. So I've broken this down further for easier viewing. These are the average daily deaths for the per million births in the first week of life. And what this shows us is that 2023 had the worst outcome for 6 out of the 8 periods listed here. And we can see there's quite a big jump for all between 2020, our best year, and now 2023. These are for the next 3 weeks of life. Again, we see progressive worsening of infant mortality over time. These are for the next 11 months. And yet again, we see that our infant mortality is far worse in 2023 than it was in 2020. So clearly something has gone wrong with the health of our infants in the Philippines. So this graph is a little complicated, but what I've done is to plot the change in infant mortality over time. The bars give you year-on-year change. You can check from the axis, and the line gives the overall change in infant mortality from 2020 to 2023. And we don't see any negative change in mortality at all. We see infant mortality, our best infant mortality was at 5 days with only a 2.3% change, but our worst infant mortality is at 10 months of age when we see nearly a 75% increase in infant mortality. So overall, very concerning condition and presentation of infant health. So next I moved to looking at leading causes of Filipino infant deaths. And I looked at the causes of death from the Philippine Statistics Office data, and these contribute more than 90% of infant deaths. So certain conditions originating in the perinatal period, these are conditions that occur in the first month of life. And between 2018 and 2023, they've increased by 6%. Congenital malformations, 2018 and 2020 were nearly the same, but thereafter we see an increase of nearly 51%, meaning something in the environment that the infants have been exposed to is causing a large rise in congenital conditions. And we also hear of that anecdotally in our community, where we hear of people who are losing their babies with unusual condition. Diseases of the respiratory system, they've increased by nearly 30%. Infectious diseases are looking better. There's a drop, probably due to effective treatment of infants who are sick due to good access to medical care. We see that bacterial sepsis of the newborn, this is a neonatal condition, is up by 14.5%. Respiratory distress of the newborn is sharply increased. It's nearly 60% increase between 2018 and 2023. Nervous system diseases are up, sepsis is up. sudden infant death syndrome is doubled, and external causes, as in other accidental threats to breathing, meaning the parent has been identified as suffocating their child by accident, have increased by 50%. I put this one in because I find it so catastrophic. And I want to show the patterns of mortality from external causes later. So for information, nearly all infants in the Philippines are born in a hospital. More than 94% by 2023 are born in a hospital setting, and over 90% are attended by a health professional. Even for those who are born at home, we have a high attendance by midwives or traditional birthing assistants. So we have less than 1% of Filipino infants are attended by a health professional at birth. Are not attended by a health professional at birth. And, we say we cannot blame the infant mortality on lack of medical care in this circumstance. Okay, so now I'm going to break down the last part of my presentation. I'm looking at infant deaths by period and cause of death. The first cause that I look at is congenital malformations. This one, the patterns are exactly as we would expect. An infant's born with a congenital condition, they die rapidly, and we see the deaths dropping off over time. What is not normal is the very large increase between 2020 and 2023. If all things had remained the same, the death rate should have been very similar across years. These are conditions originating in the perinatal period or the first month of life. This one, we see that there is still a peak in under 1 day, but there's also quite high deaths in the first 2 days of life, and then dropping off over time. Okay, deaths from respiratory distress of the newborn, we see it's quite high for the first 2 days, under 1 day and 1 day, and then dropping off over time. Again, the unusual factor is the big increase between 2020 and 2023. And even particularly if you look at the 2 days of life, you can see there's such a big jump between 2020 and 2023, meaning something is affecting the health of infants adversely. This is bacterial sepsis of the newborn. This is a neonatal condition. This one is quite concerning because what this indicates is that deaths from sepsis peak at 3 days after birth, which is day 2, so on the second day. So what this would indicate for me is that something is happening around the time of birth, which may be affecting the health outcomes of infants, given that they're born and then they start dying at a higher rate after birth. I see the same pattern with SIDS. We have low SIDS rate on the first day of birth, SIDS being unexplained cause of death, but the baby just died, and dropping off over time. But our peak is at 2 to 3 days. This is infectious and parasitic diseases. This one is particularly interesting because our young infants are not dying from these conditions. The infants who start dying from these conditions start at 4 weeks of age. And 4 weeks to the first month of life is which covers 4 to 6 weeks, up to 4 to 8 weeks of age. Is a very big spike. We also see a spike somewhat at 6 months and 9 months of age of the infant. So perhaps something is affecting immune systems that they become vulnerable to dying from infectious diseases. The overall numbers are relatively low, but consider the average per day, for example, 28 days to 1 month, that's a 33-day period. So you have 10 babies in there. So you're looking at 330 babies dying every year from infectious and parasitic diseases in their second month of life. We also look at diseases of the respiratory system. Big peak starting at 28 days. Again, something has made the infants more vulnerable, and we see dramatically increasing rates of death from this cause over the 4 years that I was able to look at. These are infant deaths from diseases of the nervous system. Our newborn babies are not dying from diseases of the nervous system. In fact, in some years, there's no infants reported as dying from these conditions, but their deaths start exactly at 4 weeks of age, with a big spike at 6 months and somewhat of a spike at 9 months and 12 months from neurological diseases. Infant death from sepsis, again, there's a spike at 28 days. This is accidental threats to breathing. This is suffocation. Usually it would be blamed on the parent. And I find this quite fascinating because being a mother, we know that a newborn baby doesn't move very much. It's not very mobile. It can't protect itself. By the time your baby gets bigger and older, it can already roll, it can move, it can manipulate itself. Yet these babies are not dying from accidental threats to breathing. They start peaking at 2 months of age. I'm having trouble moving my slide. There we go. So I would like to ask, I just lost my slide. Are external factors affecting infant mortality? Patterns of infant mortality, deaths per million births dropped sharply in 2020, but rose thereafter, with 2023 deaths now at their highest level in more than 20 years. We have rising mortality despite more than 99% of births occurring in a health facility or attended by a health professional, midwife, or birth assistant. Congenital conditions peak on day 0, but they've risen to their highest recorded levels in 2023. Why do deaths peak at 2 to 3 days post-delivery for certain conditions, including sepsis, respiratory distress, and SIDS? What has gone wrong? And why is there a substantial change in cause of death, with the peak specifically starting in the 28-day to 1 month period, which is the second month of life for key conditions, including infectious disease, respiratory and nervous system diseases, sepsis, and accidental threats to breathing? I'm not drawing any correlation. I'm only presenting this for information. There is no causal link that's not for me to claim, but our audience may be interested to know the core vaccinations in the Philippines. The first vaccine that, the first point is that most babies born in the Philippines after 2021 have been born to women who received COVID-19 vaccines. Most probably that was CoronaVac, Sinovac, the Chinese vaccine, or Pfizer. Women are offered DT during pregnancy. The DT used here is diphtheria, tetanus. It uses a thimerosal and aluminium formula. At birth, infants are given BCG. They're given the first dose at birth within minutes of birth, and it's given to all infants who are larger than 2 kilograms of life, 2 kilograms of weight. Hepatitis B vaccine is given at birth. It's given then at 4 weeks and 6 months, and if the third dose was given too early, it will be given as a 4th dose after 6 months. Polio is given as either oral or IPV. Sorry, the hepatitis B vaccine given at birth also contains aluminium and thimerosal. These components have been phased out in first world countries, but the vaccines offered in the Philippines are endorsed by the WHO, and these are the products that are given to people here. I understand that there is only one hepatitis B vaccine available in the Philippines now, which is the one with aluminium and thimerosal. When I had children earlier, quite a few years ago, we had a choice between different vaccines, but I understood still at that time it did have aluminium and thimerosal. So we also have a pentavalent vaccine given in 3 doses starting at 6 weeks. This vaccine also contains aluminium and thimerosal. We give our infants measles and MR or MMR, 2 doses in the Philippines at 9 months and 12 months. And there's also PCV offered, which is given in 2 doses at 6 and 10 weeks. So curious, we have to ask the question, the peak in deaths and the change in patterns of infant mortality starting at 4 weeks of age somehow correlate with the heaviest dosing of the vaccine schedule, which starts intensively starting from 4 to 6 weeks of age. It's also worth noting in the Philippines, the government is very much committed to vaccination programs to protect the infants, and health workers may administer catch-up vaccines to infants during vaccination drives, and their policy is to vaccinate all children that they can irrespective of prior vaccination history. So please bear that in mind as our presentation continues. Again, no correlation, no causality, just a thought. So these findings raise an alarm signal that certainly warrants further investigation. I'm very interested how these may relate globally. I haven't managed to find similar data for many other countries. I do have similar data for Malaysia, which I will analyze when I finish with this one. And I would also like to raise the question, are these infant mortality data a smoking gun? We would have expected in a developing world with aggressive healthcare policies, our infants should be getting healthier. And the infants who die are the tip of the iceberg. If this many infants are dying, whatever is causing their death may also be causing harm to a much larger number of infants. So thank you for your time, and I will hand over to the next speaker.
So thank you very much, Ms. Clark. And we now ask Dr. Villanueva and Ms. Reyes to present their findings. All right, so Dr. Villanueva and Ms. Reyes, you have the floor and the screen.
You can unmute.
Hello, good evening. So I am Dr. Villanueva, and I will be presenting my findings with Ms. Reyes, entitled The Investigation of Vaccines Used in the Philippines Using EMF Monitoring and Dark Field Microscopy. This is our disclaimer. It was conducted by Ms. Reyes and I. So let's begin. These are the samples that I tested. They include BCG, inactivated poliomyelitis, diphtheria and tetanus vaccine for adults and adolescents, tetanus toxoid adsorbed, diphtheria, tetanus pertussis, hepatitis B, and Haemophilus influenzae type B. This is what we call our pentavalent or 5-in-1 vaccine. The next, I tested the pneumococcal vaccine, as well as poliomyelitis oral and hepatitis B. So I've indicated the product brand names, the batch numbers, their expiry periods, and all of them meet the WHO requirements, but I can't find data on the particular brand of tetanus toxoid. These are the actual samples tested. Next, talk about the equipment that I use. So I use a Neogenesis Systems NGS 2020 microscope. So it has magnifications of up to 100 times. And if it is viewed with a video application, that's times 40 magnification. I use a cardioid dark field oil immersion condenser. These are the camera specifications.
Hello, yes. I also used particular equipment. It's called a tri-field EMF meter model TF2. It's a 3-in-1. It measures alternating current magnetic. And then it also measures alternating current electric and radio frequency, which has a range detectable of 20 megahertz to 6 gigahertz. So when it comes to safe levels, there are no absolute safe levels for electromagnetic or radio frequency fields that have been established. However, according to research, there have been no problems associated with staying below 1 milliwatt per square at peak square meter, or field measurement should read less than 0.2 milliwatts per square meter. Now, what we did was we took an EMF measurement on a remote area where we conducted the test, and this means that it is not densely populated by any cell phone tower or is accessible for other radio frequencies. So when we turned off the Wi-Fi router, the readings appeared as 0.000 and at peak 0.020. And then when we switched on the Wi-Fi router, it was at previous slide. It was still way below at 0.006. Okay. So when we were doing the experiment in this quiet area, we also took readings on the specimen under the microscope. And it's way below the standard, which is 0.052. Now, we also did a measurement in another location, which is at the city center. And after doing research using an online application, cellular tower, and signal mapping, we found out that there are 11 cell phone towers within 1 kilometer radius of our testing location. And these cell phone towers emit 767.5 megahertz on a low frequency and at peak levels 2621.4 megahertz. This is a sample of the machine detecting the reading. It makes a sound picking up the radio frequencies. In this case, it's at 2.4 at the highest speed. And then we also tested the microscope while we were doing the location test. In the next slide, you will see that we also checked the microscope for the readings while we were conducting the observation. And so that's what the background is on EMF measurement. I'll turn it over now to Dr. Villanueva for the sampling.
Thank you. So for the sampling method, this is the sampling method. The rubber toppers were sterilized. A septic technique was performed. A sample of each vial was aspirated using new sterile syringes. It was applied on a glass slide. So I used 1 to 2 drops on a previously clean glass slide. And then I applied a cover slip right away on the glass slide. And then I placed it on the microscope stage. Then I viewed it under magnifications of 4 to 40 times. Recording was performed. Activity was noted and recorded. And for the hepatitis B vaccine, a drop of fresh blood from a healthy individual was introduced to the slide. So the vaccine was already under the cover slip, and the drop of blood was introduced through the side of the cover slip. And then it was recorded. Timestamps were also noted. So findings, these are my findings. I tabulated them based on what was observed. So I observed movement and activity, and I graded it based on the level of activity. Some with 3+ demonstrated highly motile and visible particles that had apparent intentional motion. For the shapes and size, I classified them based on whether they were smaller than red blood cells and whether they were complex, large geometric structures. I also noted that a few of these particles were interacting with the light Some were reflective with light interacting particles that were observed to pulse light in different colors. So these were yellow, green, purple, and blue. Self-assembly was also noted. So some particles appeared singly, other particles were composed of multiple structures, multiple of the smaller particles that appeared singly were seen to conglomerate together. Visibly aggregating particles were seen, and these were observed to become larger over time. So while observing these findings, I also noted that there was a magnetism observed. So particles that were floating nearby would suddenly become attracted to either the larger structures around them or to other particles around them. So this is interparticle interaction. Aside from magnetizing towards each other, they were also seen to interact in some way with intentional motion. So we'll be viewing these. I've recorded them so that I can share my observations with you. So these were the findings. I tabulated them. So for all of the samples, in summary, some form of movement and activity was observed. All of the samples contained particles that were light interacting. All of the samples also were noted to have self-assembling properties. All the particles were noted to have interparticle interaction. The only one that I didn't observe magnetic activity was with the BCG vaccine. And complex geometric structures were also observed in all of the samples except for the BCG vaccine. So we'll be taking a look at that. So I will present my findings. So first, let's look at inactivated poliomyelitis vaccine. This is an injectable, and this is the vaccine insert. Just a little background on it. This is available for everyone. It's just the product label, and it says that this particular brand contains formaldehyde, as well as a association to administration of this vaccine has been made with Guillain-Barré syndrome. So Guillain-Barré syndrome is an autoimmune condition where your immune system starts to attack peripheral nerves. So deaths have been reported in temporal association with this vaccine. This is on MIMS, available for everyone to see. So let's take a look. This is the polio inactivated vaccine. I put it at 10x speed so that we can see how the particles disperse, and then after that we'll see it as it is in real time. So this is at 10x speed. Particles consisted of spheres smaller than red blood cells. Light interaction was noted at yellow light, and as I was observing this, I noted that there was a magnetic activity observed. So some of the particles would, as it would get closer to the larger structures or to each other, they seem to come nearer and become attracted. So they're seen to visibly aggregate together. So this leads me to the question, why are the particles demonstrating observable magnetic properties? Next, we talk about diphtheria and tetanus vaccine. I also viewed this under the microscope, and as mentioned earlier, this also contains aluminum as an adjuvant as well as thiomersal. This is what it looks like under the microscope. So motile particles were observed in motion, and there was visible twitching motions of the larger particles. So smaller particles were seen to aggregate to these larger particles. There was some sort of magnetism observed. Next, we talk about tetanus toxoid. So tetanus toxoid, it has the side effect of a severe Arthus type hypersensitivity reaction. So this is a severe immune response. Hypersensitivity reaction means you are having an allergic reaction. And those who have had a previous experience of this hypersensitivity reaction should not be given the vaccine more frequent than 10 years. It should be not given also to any persons with bleeding disorders, such as hemophilia, thrombocytopenia, or to persons on anticoagulant therapy. So let's take a look at the particles observed. So this is at 400 times magnification. The particles that were observed were similar to the diphtheria and tetanus vaccine, wherein larger aggregates were seen. Smaller particles were also noted to magnetize towards these larger structures. So the particles that were seen were demonstrated in swimming, tumbling motions, and were observed to aggregate, forming larger, loosely attached structures that appeared to move in unison. Next, we look at the tetanus toxoid. Oh, no, sorry. The diphtheria, the 5-in-1 vaccine. So the 5-in-1 vaccine, patients with history of fever of unknown cause, collapse, or shock-like states, persistent inconsolable crying, lasting more than 3 hours. Tanya, you raised your hand.
Yes, excuse me, Dr. Villanueva. We have some
Yes.
feedback that they're not seeing the slides. They're just hearing you speak.
Can you see the slides? Can you?
I can see the slides, but I just like to clarify for those who are in the Zoom room, are you able to see the slides?
I can see also.
Yes, I
Oh,
can
right.
see them.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Thank you. You can proceed.
Okay. So inconsolable crying lasting 3 or more hours, which occurred within 48 hours of vaccination, convulsions within 3 days, thrombocytopenia or low platelet counts, bleeding disorders, history of febrile convulsions, Guillain-Barré syndrome, again, that occurred within 6 weeks of this vaccine. Other adverse reactions are syncope or fainting, hypersensitivity or an allergic reaction, bleeding, hematoma, apnea, or the absence of breathing, especially with very premature infants. So let's take a look at the 5-in-1 vaccine. So the 5-in-1 was composed of the highly motile moving particles. There were different forms and shapes seen. Some were spheres, some were rods. They observed swimming, tumbling motions, and they also aggregated towards the larger structures, as well as their light interacting features. I usually sometimes blur the image so that you can observe the interaction of these particles with the light. So that's when you can see the purple lights, the blue lights, the green lights. Next, we move on to our pneumococcal. So the pneumococcal is adsorbed on aluminum phosphate. And it is noted here that it is a turbid white suspension. When it's stored, a fine white deposit with a clear, colorless supernatant can be observed. Let's take a look at how that looks like on the microscopic level. So fine white deposit, colorless supernatant. So particles observed were also motile, and interacting rods appeared singly, as well as large, interconnected, irregularly shaped particles that were loosely connected. Mobile particles appeared singly, exhibited swimming and tumbling motions, but were observed to magnetize towards larger structures that were of similar appearance. They're also noted to observe to be interacting with other particles as well as the larger structures. So this is done in real time. This has not been sped up. Next, we look at poliomyelitis oral vaccines. So this is a bivalent type 1 and 2. No adverse effects have been produced by giving this to a sick child. But in cases of diarrhea or vomiting, after it has been administered, the dose received will not be counted as part of the immunization schedule, and it should be repeated after recovery. It's also noted here that in the vast majority of cases, there are no side effects, but a recently vaccinated child may very rarely be at risk of vaccine-associated paralytic poliomyelitis. So those are for people in close contact with the recently vaccinated child. So here we observe various shapes and sizes of light interacting particles. So they were seen displaying activity, twitching, tumbling, swimming. Larger structures were also observed, which appeared to be aggregates of the smaller particles. The larger structures that were aggregates of the smaller particles were observed to interact with other structures. So this is what I mean by aggregates of the smaller structures. I'll just move it a little fast so that you can see how it interacts with each other based on my observations. So if you look at this, it's as if they're swimming. So when we're looking at the fluid, we're looking at it as if it's like a swimming pool. So there are different layers. Like one can be on the surface of the water, one is underneath. So just like this, some of them are seen to go underneath, around. Next, we go to hepatitis B. So for hepatitis B, this is the vaccine that's available in the Philippines and given within the first hour of life. This is adsorbed on aluminum hydroxide, and thiomersal is added as a preservative. When I was viewing the samples under the microscope, I had 8 samples, 8 vials of the hepatitis B, and consistent within these samples, I observed these large geometric structures. So these are still images. Now let's look at activity. So it was measured in 2 locations, one that was exposed to Wi-Fi and another in a radio quiet location. So I will play the video so that you can see the small particles that were interacting are noted to display some levels of magnetism, as you can observe. The larger aggregates of the particles were also noted with its own activity. So it would move together, the larger particles. on the bottom, there is also noted activity, but it is observably much less than with the sample that was viewed in a Wi-Fi zone. It's almost as if the sample on the bottom, if you're looking at it at real time, it almost looks like it's frozen. You'd have to speed it up to see the movement and activity of the particles. So significantly less activity. Aside from this, other parameters were tested. A drop of fresh blood was mixed with the vaccine sample on the cover slip. In the area that there was Wi-Fi, cell lysis began at 3 minutes, whereas at the area that was a radio quiet zone, it was only after 46 minutes of observation that cell lysis was noted. So let's take a look at this comparison video. Oops, sorry.
Yeah, and a little bit on cell lysis, Aisha. Sorry.
Yeah, cell lysis. Red blood cells have a membrane, and usually in states when there is a toxicity or there is some incompatibility in the pH, then it can cause the rupture of these membranes. So they can also be referred to as ghost cells. We see these in patients with hemolytic anemia. So as you're seeing the sample on the left, there is a much activity in terms of lysis, whereas on the right, just a little bit is seen at around this moment here. There is still some lysis, but not as pronounced there. That was at 46, at the 46-minute count. Do you see it on the top right? So with the cell lysis in the Wi-Fi zone, I documented this from the second that I dropped the blood up until I had viewed that a significant number of the cells had lysed. So let's take a look at this with the timestamp so that you can see what I mean by 3 minutes. So this is when the drop of blood was applied. You see it settling into the sample, these red blood cells and the aggregates. After three minutes, you see the red blood cells lose their red color and they become this grayish. I mean, we're all looking at the same thing. Are you also having these observations as you're watching this? So the red blood cells are still there. It was at 3 minutes that I first observed lysis of the red blood cells. So around here, 3 minutes, red blood cell lysis begins. It continues on. This is in the Wi-Fi zone. After 7 minutes, 9 minutes, after 10 minutes, 11 minutes. So the red blood cells close to the aggregate seem to lyse much faster, but there didn't seem to be any pattern. This is after 14 minutes, and after 19, almost 20 minutes, 90% of the red blood cells in the viewing field had lysed and ruptured. So it brings me to the questions, what are the large structures that were seen in the hepatitis B vaccine? Why do we consistently see them in all of the vials tested? Why were the particles less active without Wi-Fi? In the first place, why is cell lysis being observed? And why is there a significant time difference of the cell lysis between the two samples? One in an area with Wi-Fi and one in an area that is radio quiet. So lastly, we look at the BCG vaccine. This is also along with the hepatitis B given in the first hour of life. Instructions say avoid rigorous shaking, which may enhance or aggravate clump formation. So this is the BCG vaccine. Moving particles suspended in the solution were observed to be floating towards the outer edge of the cover slip. So various rods, spheres, smaller than red blood cells were interacting with the light. So I observe different colors. There's purple, there's yellow, there's some green, twitching and tumbling activity. What I did next is I also added a drop of blood to this sample. So this is the time lapse. As the red blood cells are mixing in with the sample, you see that they start to display what we call as rouleau formation. This is after 16 minutes. I reviewed the slide again, and this is what I came back to. This is what we call rouleau formation as well as aggregation. So where do we see this? We see this in anemia. We see it in hemolytic anemia. We see it in paraneoplastic conditions. We see it in autoimmune conditions. We see it in heavy metal poisoning. So this is actually not allowing the red blood cells to do what they're supposed to do, which is to flow within our capillaries. Our capillaries are very small, so you need these small red blood cells to be able to mold through the capillaries and flow to reach all the peripheries of our bodies to deliver oxygen and nutrients. So what happens when they are clumped up like this is they cannot perform efficiently the tasks that they have. So it can lead to various symptoms and conditions. So my question is, why are the vaccine formulations being given in the Philippines not acceptable in first world countries? Thank you. That is my presentation.
All right, so thank you very much, Dr. Villanueva and Ms. Reyes. And can I request tech support to please put a spotlight? All right. Okay, so we bring back to the stage Ms. Clark. We thank you, ladies, for your presentation this evening. And I'm sure our audience who are watching on YouTube and here in Zoom have a lot of questions. So may we encourage you to please type in your questions into the chat box or in the comment section of YouTube. And as you are composing your questions, we would also like to invite our reactors to come and give their responses to what has been presented to us today. And so when we call on your names, we can invite you to please turn on your videos. We will be introducing you briefly and we'll be bringing you to the stage. All right. So first of all, we would like to call on Dr. Joseph Sanson. Dr. Sanson is a psychotherapist specializing in clinical hypnosis. He has a bachelor's degree in psychology and a master's degree in clinical mental health counseling, as well as a PhD in psychology. For those of you who are here because of the freedom movement, you most probably know Dr. Sanson as being a very vocal critic and advocate against the mRNA vaccines. He authored the mRNA Bioweapons Prohibition Act in the Minnesota State Legislature and has been very vocal about this. And so if we can invite Dr. Sanson to join us, on stage when he's ready. Okay. We also have with us Dr. Marivic Villa, Filipina based in Florida. She's a board certified pulmonologist and critical care and internal medicine and a medical doctor practicing for more than 20 years in the Villages, Florida. Dr. Villa is the founder of World Council for Health Florida. She's also part of the steering committee of World Council for Health Philippines and currently is catering to thousands of vaccine-injured patients, many of them seniors and elderly. And Dr. Villa experiences firsthand vaccine injury. She has seen the devastation wreaked by the COVID vaccines, and she has been an outspoken critic and advocate for medical truth and full disclosure of what has happened during the pandemic. We're also joined tonight by Dr. Romeo Quijano, Dr. Romy. He's a well-respected expert in the field of pharmacology and toxicology. He was a longtime professor at the University of the Philippines General Hospital, UPPGH, the College of Medicine of the University of the Philippines, arguably the top medical school in the country, and an advocate against toxins in every form, whether it's environment, food, pesticides, etc. And so he is joining us tonight. And also we have Dr. David Nixon. So Dr. Nixon is an Australian general practitioner. He has a bachelor's degree in surgery, and he's a fellow of the Royal Australian College of General Practitioners. And for those of you who are here, I'm sure you're also familiar with Dr. Nixon's work. He has also been doing similar dark field microscopy work, and we have been consulting with him in the preparation of the findings for today's presentation. And so we would like to call you all to the stage. So we will be spotlighting you. So welcome Dr. Sanson, Doc Romy, Doc Marivic. And then let's find Dr. Nixon. All right. So thank you for joining us tonight. And we would like to invite you to give your comments. Any of you can decide to go first. And please,
Okay.
please give us your thoughts on what you have heard and seen so far.
Do you want me to do it first?
Yes.
Okay. So, Attorney Tanya and the crew, thank you so much for presenting this to the world, because I don't think that this is only affecting the Philippines, but the implication of this, the use of vaccine all over the world, this is a reflection of what can happen, really, what can happen to anybody getting, the vaccine. We're not saying we're not saying the vaccine was the cause, but you can see, the timing and the correlation of giving the vaccine to the kids and actually the spike or the surging of the deaths among the recipient of the vaccine. So I'm not obviously I'm not a vaccinologist. I am not an expert in what was presented, like what it looks like to me, nanotechnology, which are very pervasive now. People and big pharmaceutical companies, I believe, are already utilizing this technology, and so we can only surmise what has been presented that it's doing damage. But since I'm not an expert on that, I only have like a couple of questions that is actually, it should be, this question should be examined very carefully, and we have to think about it as doctors. The first one is, why are this vaccine, or especially the hepatitis B, because it's very impressive on the microscope, why is it even being given in newborn babies? Why? And why is it a very important question? Because we know newborns, they don't have mature immune system. how can they even react or mount the supposedly, effective response so that they get protected as they grow older, and if they're getting exposed to the infectious agent? So their immune system is not mature enough. The earliest that these babies can actually have a good immune response, the earliest, and correct me if I'm wrong, for those of you who are pediatrician, but this is well-known facts, that the earliest is going to be at 6 months and definitely 1 to 2 years. So they presented that this vaccine, they have a lot of adjuvants or whatever, additional preservative, however you label that, and they're not supposed to be there. But you know why they are putting it there? It's because the baby is not, or the newborn is not capable of responding. So they have to put something to stimulate the immune system of the baby. So without the adjuvants, I don't know what kind of response or protection you can expect from this vaccine. You see? And so, what are you exposing the baby to? Risk. The danger that these adjuvants or preservatives can potentially give you. You're exposing the baby to the risk of these substances. So that's number one. So I guess they have to do it how many times and what intervals. I'm not 100% familiar with a childhood vaccination schedule. So that's number one. That's very important point. And for those of you who are listening, please look into that because it's very important. And then these adjuvants, for sure, will actually cause autoimmune diseases. That's my first-hand experience with the COVID vaccine. It's very high autoimmune rate. It's about 70 to 80% of the vaccinated seniors that I'm dealing with, they have autoimmune disease. And even what was presented, like the rouleau formation. So just imagine, you're going to die from that if you're not able to deliver the oxygen at a tissue level, And the other one was they're having hemolysis. For those of you who don't know what hemolysis is, basically your red blood cells are bursting, dead. You're gonna die. You're gonna die from that. If the reduction of your hemoglobin, hematocrit is like, I don't know, 5 grams per DL in few hours, you're gonna die. So you're injecting this to that little body, the baby, the newborn. You're gonna die. The baby is gonna die. On top of that, reaction to the adjuvant, it can cause an anaphylactic reaction. So they will die. Number two, so for those of you, probably the other reactors can expand what I'm saying. And then the other one is, what is the mode of transmission of hepatitis B specifically? It's this hepatitis B is really bloodborne. It's transmitted by exposure to the contaminated, blood sample, and also the other one is sexually transmitted. Obviously, you can. They're stretching that idea that you can get it by, I don't know, kissing or something. So you're not going to kiss your baby because you're suspected to have a hepatitis B infection. I mean, the imagination is becoming ridiculous. The common sense is gone. It's like, doctors, where are you? Why are you not looking at this? These are babies. These are our future. And you're killing them off. You're killing them all. I mean, how much was it, Sally? 70% increase? What the heck is that? Why are we not doing something? And for the healthcare official, the Filipinos especially, and with this upcoming World Health Assembly, I mean, we will be the Filipino Healthcare Authority. I forgot the name. I think it's Dr. Herbosa. Dr. Herbosa, I'm calling you. I'm trying to get your attention. Look at this. This is a very important findings. And I'm actually very, very proud of this people presenting this, because this is something very important that we have to look into. Please do not miss it. Okay, so obviously, I'm going to tell you I'm not a pediatrician, but this is common sense, and we are doctors. We know the pathophysiology. We know what these substances can do. We have to be sensible, unless you want everybody to die, unless you don't want the population to grow for whatever reason. I mean, you want the world to die, because I'm pretty sure that this is not only happening in the Philippines. This is happening all over, just like what's happened to COVID. And these are the things that we should expose all the time, so that individually, us will think for ourselves, because it's more important. You cannot rely on this healthcare authority. You cannot even rely on our government, who's supposed to be protecting us. So this is really a wake-up call. And you have to wake up. Everybody needs to wake up. If you don't believe in this, then I don't know. You're in another, I don't know what planet you belong to. So I'm very passionate about this because of my firsthand experience on COVID. And that's even more explosive. And thank you, Sally, for presenting that, because that is also very explosive report. And that's also happening all over the world. So we always have to speak up and, speak out, and, don't let this rest, because it's not right. They violated so much of our human rights, and they're dictating what medication, what treatment we got. What the heck is that? Once you violate your human rights, you're not, I don't know, you're not human anymore. You're a slave, at least, to the least. Okay? So this is a call to, we have to wake up. That's it. Um,
Very impassioned as always, Doc Marivic. Thank you for caring for the children, and thank you for caring for the Philippines all the way from Florida. So thank you for those insights. And you're one of the very few doctors who are able to speak out with such passion. Many doctors prefer to hide behind clinical trials and is this peer reviewed. But I think you make an important point, treating patients, seeing patients, and the point of this whole press conference really is to present findings, and to raise questions. We are seeing these things. Can the doctors who are here explain? Can you tell us, are we seeing correctly? Are we interpreting correctly? I'm not a doctor, definitely, and that's why we need doctors to help interpret. But we do see cells disappearing on the screen. We do see things that seem to be emitting light. And we ask the question, are those supposed to be there in the first place? And if they're not supposed to be there, why are they there? And what effect do they have on the body? We'd also now like to invite Dr. Sanson, who I understand has been working closely with Dr. Marivic Villa. What are your thoughts, Dr. Sanson, on what you've seen and heard today? Oh, can we ask you to unmute, please?
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay, it was muted. They're trying to normalize this. It's not normal. I've been in litigation for over a year here in Florida to get the injections off the mRNA injections off the market because they are in fact biological and technological weapons of mass destruction. They meet the legal criteria of biological weapons according to 18 USC 175, Chapter 10 biological weapons, as well as the Biological Weapons Convention. I have an affidavit from Dr. Francis Boyle, the law professor that wrote the 1989 Biological Weapons and Anti-Terrorism Act, stating that it violated the law he wrote. I have affidavits from medical doctors and scientists too. We just looked at data showing the infant mortality rates increasing, and there's other studies out there talking about drops in birth rates as well. So, I mean, I'm not looking at this in the narrow niche that you are as the researchers. I'm looking at it in the overall context. So you've got drop in birth rates, increase in infant mortality, and you've got a decline in lifespans. And you do not need to be a medical doctor or a scientist to realize that if you give people chronic diseases, you are shortening their lifespans. For example, I have type 1 diabetes. On average, the lifespan is 15 years less than everybody else. I'm not saying that to scare people, but I'm saying that to wake people up. Most people will have a shortened lifespan because of these injections. That's a reality, and that's a reality that you need to get a little angry about in a healthy form of anger to stop this. You either support biological warfare against the human race or you don't. It's really that simple. Now, what what I'm seeing with the presentation with the self-assembling technology, that was really interesting because I've seen that before, but I've seen that with the mRNA injections, and now you're showing that in other vaccines, which is quite concerning because there is funding. If you look at like here in the United States, the White House supplemental budget, there is funding in the nanotechnology initiative for mRNA vaccines. So it exists. It's not some fantasy. Now you're seeing them when they've assembled to the point where they're visible to the visible eye. There must be emerging from somewhere, which would support the idea that we are seeing self-assembling nanotechnology there. But that's very concerning because you're showing other vaccines where we seem to be seeing the same type of technology. The reality is I don't think anybody's going to have the full scope of this. Even the conspirators themselves, it's probably compartmentalized and only a few people understand fully what's happening. But all you need to do is go read the first 4 chapters of Aldous Huxley's Brave New World, and you can see what they're doing. They're experimenting on us. They are, these people are sick, twisted transhumanists. They are psychopathic authoritarians. What they're doing are things that we would consider totally unimaginable. And I think that I don't think it's time to be timid at this point. I think it's time to go on the offense. I've been on the offense for a few years, and I encourage more people to state the truth. These are, in fact, weapons of mass destruction. I'm gonna leave it at that on my part, and I'll let the medical doctors get more into the technical aspects. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sanson. Very provocative. The issue of bioweapons. The Philippines, actually, we're far behind the United States. We have to rely on mature regulatory authorities to say what is acceptable, what's within limits. And your insights on the bioweapon aspect of it is very helpful because we're just catching up. And you're obviously very advanced over there in the US. Doc Romy, you're not a stranger to this. We've had similar conversations along those lines, and you've been dealing with toxins in your work as a doctor and as a toxicologist. Can you chime in po on your views on what we've seen tonight? Okay, please unmute.
Can you hear me now? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Can you hear me now? Okay. First, I'd like to thank the presenters, Ms. Sally, Dr. Villanueva, and Ms. Reyes. These findings actually corroborates many other findings done previously. And of course, for those who are familiar with Ms. Sally, you have already heard her present the excess deaths during the congressional hearings in the Philippines, and the pediatric deaths that she has just presented is quite consistent with her initial findings on the overall excess deaths, coinciding with the mass rollout of the vaccines. And I have actually done an analysis on this using the scientific criteria to determine cause and effect relationship. And to me, there's no doubt that the excess deaths that have been found after the rollout of the vaccines is quite clearly the major cause would be the mass rollout of the vaccines. And I have no doubt about it. It's both scientifically clear using the scientific criteria in determining cause and effect relationships, and you can go into the details of that, even using, for example, the Bradford Hill criteria or the more simplified WHO criteria of cause and effect. That should be very clear. And the findings of Ms. Sally regarding the statistical data that you've gathered is actually showing that despite the fact that there are other contributory factors that might contribute to the excess deaths, the major thing that is quite visible to explain this excess deaths, including the pediatric deaths in so many other ways, it's actually clear in terms of cause and effect relationship. So, and as far as the findings of Dr. Villanueva and Ms. Reyes are concerned, again, this is not a new finding. This has been shown by many other independent researchers that actually have observed the presence of nanoparticulates in the vaccines, whether the COVID vaccines or even previously, other researchers have also found nanoparticles in the traditional vaccines. If I'm not mistaken, as early as the 2010 by the Italian researchers and corroborated by some other researchers. And very recently, other researchers have actually identified possible substances that could explain the behavior that have been found with the dark field microscopy that was done by Dr. Villanueva and Ms. Reyes. Actually, this kind of microscopic findings of nanoparticles have been done also by several other groups from the US and other countries. And in fact, a more sophisticated method of identifying these nanoparticulates have been done. And one of the most likely substances that have been identified is the presence of graphene oxide and other graphene nanoparticulates. And again, very recently, they have already incorporated nanocomposites in the traditional vaccines like hepatitis B vaccine, for example. And this could explain already the findings of Dr. Villanueva and Dr. Reyes in this kind of vaccines. I'm not sure about the other vaccines, but what I've seen is that at least in the hepatitis B vaccine, the US FDA actually have approved already the use of nanotechnology as a carrier to the adjuvants used in the hepatitis B vaccine to stimulate the immune system more strongly without due consideration to the possible serious adverse effects because of these nanoparticulates. Again, if you look into the studies already, numerous studies that have been done on the toxicology of nanoparticulates, including inorganic and biological nanoparticulates, including graphene oxide. It's very clear that these are very toxic substances. And that is why the findings of hemolysis in the red blood cells, these have already been demonstrated, and the mechanism of toxicity has already been elucidated, especially for graphene oxide. But other nanoparticulates can also do the same thing. And the observation of magnetic characteristic has already been demonstrated also repeatedly by independent researchers. And again, you can search other independent studies done in other countries regarding this. And there are several studies regarding graphene oxide. Again, I could point that as because that is the most likely substance I could think of that could explain all these findings, including the self-assembly characteristics and including the reactivity to electromagnetic frequency radiation. In fact, the technology has advanced so much that this nano substances, particularly graphene oxide, uh, have already been shown to be programmable, such that it can act as a biosensor. It can act, or it can also send signals through the electromagnetic field energy radiation, so that you can actually also manipulate it and distribute it purposely to practically every part of the body. Uh, and the implication is that these are acting like computer chips, but of biological material, you know. And this has been shown already by several researchers. I've actually written an article about this. If you can find it in the internet now, I think the title of my article is COVID vaccine and COVID vaccine and graphene oxide. And I was worried about it because the implication is that those responsible for this can now actually go into mind control. And the issue of mind control has been going on for several decades, actually, and they have advanced the technology already in so many ways. And the most advanced now is using nanotechnology, artificial intelligence, and it's really very scary if you look into this. That's why uh, independent researchers should look more into this, because the implication is much more than the toxicity of the vaccines. By definition, the adjuvants and the elements in the vaccines, including the contaminants, are toxins. They're not really drugs, in the sense that the risks are much higher than the potential benefits. Drugs are supposed to be, although there are some risk with drugs, the benefits are supposed to be more than the potential risk. But as far as the vaccines are concerned, as far as I'm concerned, especially the COVID vaccines, the risks are much more than the potential benefits that they're talking about. And therefore, these are more rightfully considered as toxins, in my opinion. And in fact, corroborating the observation of Dr. Sanson, uh, I actually also wrote the origin of the so-called COVID virus and the vaccines emanating from the research of that as a part of the bioweapons program of the U.S. with collaboration with China in the later part of the research. And the research have been going on for the past several years. In fact, as early as 2009, for example, Pfizer already patented the coronavirus vaccine, albeit in animals. But the research that has been done in the US, done mainly by Dr. Ralph Baric, has started as early as 2012, if I'm not mistaken. And in 2015, they have collaborated with some scientists in China, and they came up with this highly infectious so-called SARS virus, which eventually became as the SARS-CoV-2 pandemic virus. And the vaccines that were developed out of it are also basically bioweapons by definition, as mentioned by Dr. Sanson. So this is a very serious matter, and I hope those initial independent researches that have been done can be more publicized, and the researchers who actually did it, those in Spain, in the US, although in the US they were more vocal about this, like for example, Dr. Marcia and the others, and also the researchers in Europe, and also I think there were also researchers in Chile and Argentina, and also in the UK. And if Dr. Laurie is listening, I think you remember that I've asked specifically about graphene oxide that has been researched also in the UK. I hope more discussions will be done regarding this matter, because I think this is much more serious than the actual adverse reactions to the COVID vaccines and other vaccines, in fact. And referring to also the pediatric vaccines and the traditional vaccine schedule, it is now also becoming very clear, although the findings that the vaccinated children suffer more diseases than the unvaccinated children, as found by Dr. Paul Thomas and his colleagues. And this is also borne out by real world data. The so-called scientific data that supposedly supports that these vaccines have saved millions of children and people. These are actually based on fraudulent data. If you look more into it, I've written also an article about this, and if given the chance, we can actually discuss all the details regarding this matter. So I guess that's all for now from my part.
So thank you, Doc Romy. And just to summarize, I guess, for the non-medical people in the room, if we understood all of you correctly, these vaccines appear to be toxic on several levels. First of all, there are adjuvants, thiomersal, formaldehyde, aluminum, mercury. So these things which are toxic in other forms have been approved for whatever reason for inclusion in the vaccine. So that there's that. And then there now appears to be new technologies being deployed, nanotechnology. And it would seem that the doctors don't seem to be aware of how advanced probably the nanotech is unless they do the study, because it seems that the tech people are the ones who are having this conversation. And so this is something that needs to be discussed in more detail, and you've shed light on that. And then there's also the additional layer of the EMF, the radiation, the seeming response to 5G electromagnetic frequencies. And so with those three different layers of toxicity, we have quite a formidable soup, if you will. And Doc Marvic.
Yes, I got. I'm sorry, guys, but we're doing a press con, but I'm doing a procedure in between it, so I'm coming in and out. So they would just get me. I just want to add again on the what do you call this? The data of Sally on COVID, and the excess death is really horrific, astronomical, or whatever superlatives I can describe her data. And by the way, Sally, really, you need to do something, to publicize and make it, make it into an official declaration that this is what is happening. And my additional comment to that is it's going to continue. The excess debt is going to continue. I have also, I take care of a lot of retirees here, and I can tell you I have at least 3,000 cases that I've already analyzed, and the excess deaths are going to continue in the sense that we have more severe chronic diseases that are coming out. Superficially, I just want to give you like a summary or a snapshot of what I am seeing, and eventually, actually, I would like to. It's going to come out as a publication as well. Number one, the rate of autoimmune diseases. The rate of autoimmune diseases is very high. I think I mentioned it earlier, 70 to 80% it will come out too. So when we have autoimmune diseases, that means more complication that's going to happen. Autoimmune disease is, it can practically affect any part of your body, from lupus to rheumatoid arthritis, mixed connective tissue diseases, Sjogren's syndrome, thyroid, autoimmune thyroiditis, autoimmune hepatitis, autoimmune gastritis, name it, it can affect any part of your body. And it needs to be diagnosed actually early so that we can treat them. Number two, this COVID vaccine is definitely causing immune deficiency. And I've been saying this from the get-go, that The target of the COVID is your immune system. Without a working immune system, you are not going to do very well and you're not going to survive. Okay? And this is a very strong statement, but this is where I am declaring it or announcing it for the first time, that my findings are, I think, compatible with, I will say this, HIV was the AIDS of the 20th century. COVID with the vaccine is the AIDS of the 21st. So if you don't appreciate what that statement is all about, then again, you're going to be in another reality. So these are the diseases that we are anticipating. And then when we publish our paper, well, I'm working on it, then the details will come out. And the other thing is, because of the lowered immune system and because of the presence of these contaminants, adjuvants, or whatever you call them, the vaccine creates more diseases. And so I see a lot of reactivation of dormant and latent infection, meaning we have, like in the Philippines, what I worry about there from the very beginning again is TB, and then leprosy and all. Here in the US, we have a lot of the tick-borne diseases and the herpes viruses. And unfortunately, like the herpes viruses will also create a lot of problems, like including cancer, leukemia, lymphoma, gastric cancer, and throat cancer, things like that. So, overall, I don't think that the excess is going to stop anytime soon, just because of that. And so, Sally, again, thank you so much for presenting what you presented, and it's two incredible ladies. Your information was something that everybody should think about and should pay attention to. Okay. I think I have to go because they're calling me to do another procedure. Okay, Pilipinas, thank you. I love you all. And for the rest of the people listening from all over the world, thank you for participating here, and see you some other time. Okay.
Thank you so much, Doc Vic. Thank you. And so we're very grateful to Doc Vic, and also Dr. Sanson had to hop off. He had to do a French exit because he also is seeing patients. And we thank our doctors who joined us tonight, and also those who are here in the Zoom room. We know that your time is so precious, and you're saving lives, and for you to be able to take time out to be here, we really appreciate that. We'd also just like to take the opportunity to read Dr. David Nixon's statement. He is here with us, but he has requested that we just read his statement instead. It's quite late already in Australia, so please allow me to be the voice of Dr. Nixon. So this is a statement of support for today's press conference on infant mortality in the Philippines. My name is Dr. David Nixon. I am a physician and independent researcher based in Australia. I wish to express my support for the Lunas Pilipinas Coalition in their efforts to bring forward vital public health data and observational findings concerning infant mortality and vaccine safety in the Philippines. I commend their use of dark field microscopy and electromagnetic field monitoring, tools I have also employed in my own investigations of the Pfizer Comirnaty vaccine. In my work, I documented dynamic self-assembling structures, programmable behaviors, and colloidal systems exhibiting unexpected levels of organization and complexity. These findings, like those emerging in the Philippines, raise urgent questions that require independent replication, not dismissal. What the Lunas Pilipinas team has presented today is not a set of final claims, but an invitation to global inquiry. Their findings merit serious consideration, not because they claim certainty, but because they reflect a growing pattern seen across different geographies and scientific disciplines. I encourage researchers, institutions, and health authorities worldwide to support open, independent investigation into these signals before they are lost to censorship or silence. The time for transparent science is now. Signed, Dr. David Nixon, MB, CHB, FRA, CGP. Thank you, Dr. Nixon. And so can we invite Dr. Villanueva, Ms. Reyes, and Ms. Clark to perhaps respond?
I'd
Okay,
just like,
perhaps,
oh
sorry,
yeah,
you go first? Who should go
Oh.
first?
I mean, I just want to thank everyone
Yes,
who's participating, sending messages of encouragement. There are some questions, but people are also sharing information, sharing detox protocols, and even books to read. So thank you to everyone who's here today. We're all here in solidarity together. It's a very beautiful experience to get to be here with all of you today. Thank you. That's all.
I'd like to say also thank you for all the support that was given in helping make this study, whether it's physical support, mental, emotional, all levels. And we do this out of our own hearts because we see that humanity is standing at the precipice and we are all threatened in our lives. And it's already time to take action. And we are calling everyone to look deeper into what is happening. And if you are moved to, please join us in doing something for the future, not just of our babies, but all children, all of humanity. Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you. Okay, so also thank you to everyone for being here. Thank you for your patience and your endurance. One of the comments I saw was asking or recommending that we get a peer review of our data and publication. And of course, we would like to do that, but that takes time. And I would like to present that we don't have time to wait for peer review before we act. If we wait for peer review and it takes a year, we have injected millions of babies in maybe 1.2 million babies in the Philippines and globally hundreds of millions of babies. Can we wait and lose more children? I will present that any baby who's born to a COVID-19 vaccinated mother is not unvaccinated because we know that spike protein generation continues indefinitely in most mothers or most adults who've been vaccinated. So a baby born to a vaccinated mother does not have a normal immune system. We don't know the consequences. One of the things we do know is that COVID-19 vaccines destroy your biome, and particularly your bifidobacter. And bifidobacter is one of the most important organisms in a baby's biome. So if a baby is born and doesn't have a normal biome, they're already incredibly vulnerable because their immune system is not normal and their development is not normal. If we then add additional toxin or additional toxic load to those babies through contaminated, dirty vaccines, even if it's just considering aluminium and thimerosal, which have been phased out in developed countries, why are we giving these substances to babies in a country where an injured baby cannot get medical support? They cannot afford it. We don't have programs for developmentally delayed children. These are the children who survive. So the Philippines cannot afford to harm our children. They are our future. And we are doing this because we have absolute faith in humanity, and we are calling on every single person to join us in the fight. We are the canary in the coal mine, and I'm holding the babies, the dead babies. They're the canaries that died. Please listen, please act. Do not wait for a peer-reviewed study. Take this serious. Please take this as your call to be brave. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Clark. And I sense that we are moving actually towards a call to action since you've already spoken along those lines. So if we can invite Doc Romy, perhaps you would like to add something more. And perhaps maybe a call to action, perhaps, or a request to your fellow doctors and scientists. Oh, you're on mute po.
Okay. Okay, well, I've always wondered why my fellow doctors, at least the majority of them as I see it, cannot see the reality that's actually in front of their eyes. And it's basically, I think, years, decades of conditioning and total subservience to the recognized, so-called recognized world authorities regarding public health and other issues regarding medicine, including drugs and vaccines. And doctors have Western trained doctors have always looked up to the CDC of the United States and WHO, without realizing that these institutions have already been captured almost totally by big corporations, so-called big pharma, and the richest people on earth, the top billionaires, for example. And despite all the facts that would show the horrendous adverse effects of many of these pharmaceuticals and these vaccines, and culminated by the very toxic COVID-19 vaccines, a lot of the medical doctors, Western-trained medical doctors, seem not to see what is obvious, and this actually saddens me a lot. And therefore, I would not really call on our fellow doctors. I would call on the citizens of the world. I have more hope on ordinary people. I have very little hope now with the medical profession as it is. I've been very disappointed. And all along, I've always believed that it's the majority of the people who should be taking action and who should be waking up, because it is them who actually hold power in this world. And to them, I submit my case, actually. And of course, I'm not saying that doctors have no role at all, but hopefully we can still stimulate not only doctors, but other professionals to really look deeper into the structural causes, the socioeconomic and cultural causes of all these problems that we're facing, because it's really very serious and threatens all of humanity, especially with these advances in technology, advances in nanotechnology, transhumanism, artificial intelligence, that basically threatens us all. As I've always said, they can actually implement anytime mind control to practically all of the population without us knowing it. And by the time before we can act, it will be too late, because they have complete control already of the people's minds. And that is what worries me a lot. Hopefully, through the initiatives of this kind of activity, we can still reverse the very serious trend towards disaster that I could see right now. I hope I'm wrong. So I have not completely lost hope, but hopefully more people will realize the truth that we're trying to reveal at every moment that we conduct this kind of activities. So thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you very much, Doc Romy, and thank you for being one of the brave doctors here in the Philippines who have held up under pressure, under threat of revocation of your license. You have been persecuted even by your own students. People who owe their medical education to you have denounced you for your views, but you have remained steadfast in preaching the truth. Thank you for being a prophet in the medical profession and in the scientific community here in the Philippines. We need more people like you. Thank you for being here for us and for speaking the truth.
Thank you.
Thank you. And so we just also so we are moving towards closing. We know that there are other questions, but we know it's running late. It's already close to midnight here in the Philippines. It's already past midnight in Australia and New Zealand. And so we just like to perhaps acknowledge everyone who's here. Thank you for coming to this press con. Thank you for being here in the Zoom room. Thank you for tuning in via YouTube. We've managed to stream on Facebook Live and other platforms. Thank you for joining us. And we would like to propose that this is not the end, but just the beginning, hopefully, of a more intentional global community. I think we're now connecting the dots and we're now reaching out to each other. And the World Health Assembly starting on Monday is giving us that impetus to finally organize, And so we would like to acknowledge in a very, very big way the World Council for Health under the leadership of Dr. Tess Laurie. I think Dr. Tess Laurie is with us here. And all the different WCH country councils, Florida, Singapore, Asia. And there are now new alliances forming. We are now starting to find each other. And I think this is the opportunity that gives us hope that technology, while it can be a force for evil, can also be a force for good. And we are here together thanks to the technology that they've deployed during the pandemic. So let's use this technology for good. Let's mobilize so that the people who have the power don't have the monopoly of control. Let's introduce a new system that overthrows their matrix of control. And so as we close this session, we'd like to share with you our hopes, our call to action as a coalition. And we hope that you will share this call to action as well. And so firstly, we call on national and international health authorities to uphold fundamental human rights and bioethics. These things have not been figuring in the conversation prominently, but we have to remember that there are fundamental human rights, the right to life, the right against experimentation, the right against torture, the right to bodily integrity. And we must remind health authorities, the medical community, scientific community, that these are fundamental to our existence as human beings. They must never be compromised. We invite the lawyers as well to stand up for these human rights and demand accountability and enforcement in the upcoming World Health Assembly. We especially call on the upholding of these rights in the context of existing, emerging, and experimental health interventions, especially digital health initiatives involving nanotechnology, artificial intelligence, and most disturbingly, bioweapons. You will hear more discussions about the Internet of Bodies, the Internet of Things. We hope to bring to light the different patent applications that have been around for the last decade or so on these technologies that Doc Romy talked about. Surveillance, communication, the connection between the self-assembling nanobots with EMF 5G, and what is this all about? As Dr. Sanson mentioned earlier, just go back to Aldous Huxley, A Brave New World. He was already talking about it many years ago. This is no longer science fiction, folks. This is already science reality. Next, we also call for an immediate moratorium on the administration of the hepatitis B vaccine to infants until these observations are either confirmed or disproven. So as our presenters have mentioned, we are presenting our findings and observations. We invite other civic-minded and concerned citizens, doctors, researchers, and scientists to please also do your own research and help confirm or disprove what has been presented today. We call for a detailed investigation into the hepatitis B vaccine provided via the World Health Organization. This is applicable particularly to Philippine health authorities and to the journalists who are present. May we ask you to please call the attention of our health authorities, Congress. We have a new set of officials. Our elections have just finished. Please inform our newly elected officials, our appointed health authorities, and Malacanang to please find out what's killing our children. We call for a detailed investigation into the contents and safety of all vaccines on the pediatric, pregnancy, and adult vaccine schedule. These findings show us that we cannot take for granted that the vaccines are safe and effective. If anything, it shows that they are not. And so please, DOH, FDA, please do your job and investigate these vaccines. We call for an investigation into infant and pediatric mortality in the Philippines and all over the world. The children are our future. If our children are not being born or are being injured in the first year of life, then we have a very, very dire situation on our hands. And so we call on all pediatricians, all obstetricians, all parents, please call for an investigation. We call for the phase out of thimerosal in all vaccines being rolled out in the Philippines and other developing countries. There should not be a double standard where certain deadly toxins are phased out in developed countries, but they are given freely in developing countries. This is one thing that we can demand of the World Health Organization. There must be equitable access, not to deadly vaccines or deadly experimental drugs, but to life-saving protocols and interventions where both developed and developing populations have access to safe and effective medical interventions. We call for international research to test the contents and safety of all vaccines. We particularly call for global collaboration and further studies in dark field microscopy and EMF. So we invite those of you who are here in this room, please do reach out to us. We have your email addresses. We want to collaborate with you moving forward. Because if we work together and compare data and show the world that what's happening in the Philippines is also happening worldwide, then the world must take notice. We call for an investigation into the WHO's responsibility in the approval, supply, and deployment of vaccines, including the funding of the World Health Organization. Funding and financing is going to be a major issue because President Trump has said that he will no longer allow funding to come from the United States. We have to ask ourselves, what are the conflicts of interest involved? Who is funding the World Health Organization? Who is dictating the agenda? We must follow the money trail. We must hold these unelected people who are pulling the strings accountable for the damage and deaths they are causing because of their crooked agenda. And so in that light, we call on the entire global community. To those of you who are here from different parts of the world, please sound the global call. We must reject the WHO pandemic agreement and the International Health Regulation amendments. We thank James Roguski for all the work that he has done to alert us. We thank Interest of Justice, an NGO in Costa Rica, which has sent out a legal brief that countries can use to send to their different representatives. Let's call on all our national governments to reject the pandemic agreement and these amendments. We must speak out. These health authorities have conducted these negotiations in secret without our informed consent. We must say, we must be silent no more. We will not regard their silence as consent. We do not consent to this abomination. And most importantly, we call on the global community to assert our collective human right to bodily integrity and sovereignty, and to reject all forms of medical intervention and technologies that reduce our humanness and humanity. As Doc Romy mentioned, this is ultimately about transhumanism. It's really essentially saying that the human body is flawed and needs to merge with technology. But the merger of technology is against divine law. It's against how we were designed. It ignores the natural and amazing human intelligence that we have not even fully begun to comprehend. Our ability to connect to realms beyond the physical, our psychic abilities, telepathic abilities, we have not even grasped that. And yet we are being told that we are flawed and incapable of more, and therefore we must be injected with these nanoparticles, with these bioweapons that will destroy who we are. And so in closing, as Lunas Pilipinas, we are believers in God. We are a country that is Catholic and Christian. We have Muslim populations, but by and large, we believe in God. Whether Christians, Catholic, Muslims, or indigenous peoples, we believe that there was a divine creator that created us in the image and likeness of God. And we assert that. We assert that we have been collectively created in that image and likeness. And we are now under fire. Humanity is now at risk of being destroyed. I personally believe that these technologies are meant to sever our connection to the divine, to sever our connection to God. And this is really a spiritual war and a war for the survival of humanity. And so we must collectively assert our right to survive, to live. The right to life is a fundamental human right. No government should take it away, whether it's by genocide, war, or nanotechnology or bioweapons. We deserve to exist because we are human beings. No government, no health authority, no unelected official or tyrant or cabal should take that away from us. And it's time for the brave men, women, and children of the world to speak up and stand up. Our future is at stake. And we have all been drawn together today because you responded to this call. When we launched this press con just a few days ago, we had no idea who would show up. And you have come because something in you responded to this call. We thank you for coming here. We thank you for your fealty to the truth. We thank you for your love for humanity. We thank you, especially Doc Marvic, Doc Romy, and all the doctors, Miss Clark, Miss Reyes, Dr. Villanueva, our tech team who's behind the scenes. And thank you everyone who is here. You are here because you're freedom fighters. You believe that humanity is worth saving. And you are all light. And so I just like to draw attention to our logo. We are all called to be bearers of light during this time of darkness. And we share the hope that it is darkest just before the dawn. We believe that it may seem very dark, but the veil is thinning. For those of you who understand the language, you know exactly what I'm saying. The veil is thinning. The disclosures are happening very rapidly. And I trust that there are divine helpers who are supporting the awakening of humanity. We are called to our spiritual nature. We are called to be bearers of light and to step into our divine nature. The time is now to step up our global community. And we believe that we are all the change. Lunas Pilipinas stands for healing, the remedy, the solution. The time for saviors is over. I think the time has come for us to be our own saviors. We are not going to wait for someone to save us. We are the ones that we have been waiting for. We have been part of the problem, but we are also part of the solution. Each one of us is a bright light shining in different parts of the world. We are now connected by love. We're connected by truth and connected by a shared commitment to save humanity and do this all for the greater glory of the one who created all of us in his image and likeness. And so with that, we thank everyone for coming to this press conference. God bless you all. God bless you. We send out a common prayer that we have been brought together for a common purpose, which is to glorify God and to bring humanity into a new era. We are all called here because we have responded to God's call. And so as we close this press conference, on behalf of the Lunas Pilipinas team, on behalf of the World Council for Health, who has provided invaluable support, our reactors, our doctors, thank you so much. Thank you. And as Doc Marvic always says, we love you. We are grateful for you. And we will win. We are winning. The light is winning. So thank you, everyone. Hold the light, hold the love. We are grateful for all of you.
Sorry, I'm unmuted. Okay, I would like to say thank you to everybody who is still listening tonight. Um, please share this. We will be back next week for another live stream. We look forward to meeting with you all then. So, blessings and have a wonderful week. So, good night, everybody. And I'll do this again. Love to everybody. Have a wonderful weekend. Bye.